Here is the wild part. People are saying Alex Eala's Manila fan meet sold out in minutes, even though there were never any tickets for sale. No checkout page, no Ticketmaster queue, no price tag. Globe Telecom announced the July 15th, 2026 event at the Glorieta Activity Center in Makati City as free and open to the public. Registration was scheduled to begin at 4 p.m., with the main program starting at 6 o'clock, and access details were still being finalized just days before the event. So technically, nothing sold out. But emotionally, Manila had already filled every available space long before Alex walked through the door. That is why the phrase kept spreading across Filipino tennis social media. Everyone understood what it really meant. A 21-year-old who had been ranked outside the world's top 100 only a year earlier was coming home, and the country was preparing to organize itself around her arrival. The viral claim was wrong in the most literal sense and completely right in every way that mattered. 6 days before the Glorieta appearance, Alexandra Alex Eala had walked off Wimbledon's center court after becoming the first Filipina in history to reach the round of 16 at a Grand Slam tournament. Her run ended against Italy's Jasmine Paolini in a hard-fought 3-set match, 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. Eala lost the opening set, battled back to win the second, and then came up short in the deciding set. It was a real loss, still fresh enough to sting, but it was also the greatest Grand Slam result of her career. 2 days later, she was on a plane headed home. On Sunday, July 12th, she landed at Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 3, where an ordinary arrivals area suddenly felt more like a packed sports arena. Fans waited with phones, banners, cheers, and the kind of energy usually reserved for championship celebrations. Philippine Olympic Committee President and Representative Abraham Bambol Tolentino was there to welcome her personally. That was the airport. Wednesday was going to be the country's full response. For most of 2026, tennis has been quietly asking a question about Alex Eala, but it is no longer whether she is capable of beating the sport's biggest names. According to the record described in this story, she has already defeated 7 top 10 players. The most recent victory came against defending Wimbledon champion and world number 3 Iga Swiatek on center court. Eala won the first set 7-6 after surviving an incredible 11-9 tiebreak, then took complete control of the second set, winning it 6-2. That question has been answered. Alex Eala can compete with elite players. The more difficult question is whether a 21-year-old athlete can carry the hopes of an entire country without being overwhelmed by them. That kind of pressure does not look like normal tennis pressure. Ons Jabeur has spoken about what it feels like to represent not only one nation, but an entire region. When millions of people see themselves in one athlete, every match becomes larger than a match. Every win becomes a national celebration, and every loss can feel like a shared heartbreak. Filipino support for Eala has become so large that some tournament organizers have struggled to prepare for it. Crowds have followed her onto practice courts, packed smaller stadiums, and created logistical headaches because officials simply did not expect that level of interest. When Novak Djokovic was asked about the fans surrounding Eala at the Australian Open, he described it as a good problem to have. That sounds positive, and it is, but it also hints at the bigger truth. Carrying a country is an honor and a burden at the exact same time. Everything needed to understand the Glorieta moment can be found in the 5 months leading up to it. Start again with the Swiatek match. It was Saturday afternoon in London. The defending champion stood across the net on center court, one of the most intimidating stages in sports. Eala stayed composed through the pressure, survived the marathon tiebreak, and then pulled away in the second set. Afterward, she spoke with ABS-CBN about a design her team had secretly placed on her racket bag. She said she had genuinely been surprised when they showed it to her. It was a small moment, but it revealed something important. She had just defeated a defending Grand Slam champion on center court, yet she could still be honestly delighted by a personal surprise from her team. That contrast is part of what people connect with. She can produce a historic performance under enormous pressure and still react like a regular young woman when the people around her do something thoughtful. In the next round, Paolini stopped her in 3 sets. Eala left London with the strongest Grand Slam finish of her career, a reported £300,000 prize payment for reaching the round of 16, and a flight home to a country that had been waiting for this moment long before she became a global headline. But Wimbledon was not some random lightning strike. It was the highest point of a wave that had been rising all year. In January, Eala headlined the inaugural Philippine Women's Open at Rizal Memorial Tennis Center, the first WTA tournament ever held in the Philippines. That alone marked a major shift in the country's relationship with professional tennis. Then came Dubai, where she reached the quarterfinals of the Dubai Tennis Championships. Every one of her matches drew a packed house. In that case, sold out was not an exaggeration. The seats were actually gone. After playing Eala in Dubai, American Grand Slam champion Coco Gauff spoke about how meaningful it was to see the stadium completely full. Gauff had played the event for years, but the atmosphere surrounding Eala felt different. The audience had not come simply because a major tournament was happening. They had come because Alex Eala was playing. Then came Indian Wells in March. Front Office Sports reported that several thousand fans remained in the cold at Stadium 3 until close to midnight to watch her second-round match. Her practice sessions attracted crowds comparable to those watching Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Venus Williams on nearby courts. That is not normal attention for a player who, not long before, had been fighting to break into the top 100. The same pattern appeared in Melbourne. Her first-round Australian Open match was placed on a smaller court, but organizers quickly realized they had underestimated her audience. Fans stood shoulder to shoulder along the fencing because there was not enough seating or viewing space. Tournament officials expected a regular early-round crowd. What they got was something closer to a traveling national gathering. That is what people were really talking about when they claimed Glorieta had sold out. They were not describing tickets. They were describing a pattern. Think about how quickly everything changed. In January 2026, the Philippines hosted its first WTA tournament. By July, a Filipina had reached the fourth round of a Grand Slam for the first time in the country's history. In 6 months, the nation and its biggest tennis star appeared to accelerate together. That kind of transformation usually takes years, sometimes generations. On paper, the Glorieta event was not a sporting competition. It was a mall appearance. There would be no umpire, no scoreboard, no rankings points, and no trophy ceremony. Registration would open at 4 o'clock, the program would begin at 6 o'clock, and fans would gather inside a shopping center on Ayala Avenue. Yet everyone knew it was going to feel much bigger than a promotional event. Filipino sports journalist TJ Manitok explained the deeper reason when he said the country had been hungry for the next Manny Pacquiao. During Pacquiao's peak, life in the Philippines seemed to stop whenever he fought. Roads emptied. Families gathered around television screens. Everyone watched together. His fights were more than sporting events. They were national rituals. That comparison does not mean Eala must become another Pacquiao or follow the same path. It means the Philippines has been waiting for another athlete capable of creating that same feeling of collective pride. Not only since Wimbledon, not only since Dubai or her breakthrough in Miami the previous year. The hunger had existed for a long time. Somewhere during Eala's rise, the country collectively decided the wait might finally be over. Wednesday was not about Filipino fans discovering Alex Eala. It was about Alex standing inside a mall in Makati and seeing what the public had already decided she represented. The tennis world had also started sending unmistakable signals. Djokovic called the crowds a good problem. Andy Roddick said on his Served podcast that Eala's rise was the kind of story people should cheer for because it was good for tennis. A BNP Paribas Open executive told Front Office Sports that the tournament loved the energy, benefited from it, and actively promoted it. Coco Gauff acknowledged the packed stadiums. After the Wimbledon victory over Swiatek, Catherine, Princess of Wales, reacted publicly, along with Billie Jean King, Venus Williams, and Eala's childhood idol Maria Sharapova. That is elite company. A 21-year-old from Manila had entered a room filled with legends, champions, and international sports figures. The tennis establishment may still have been processing how quickly she had arrived, but it had definitely turned its head. And the stakes extended well beyond one fan meet. 12 days after Glorieta, on July 27th, Eala was scheduled to return to competition at the Mubadala City DC Open in Washington, D.C., a WTA 500 event. From there, the hardcourt season would continue through the Canadian Open, Cincinnati, and eventually the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows, scheduled from August 30th through September 13th. Before Wimbledon, she had reportedly earned $871,438 in prize money during the 2026 season, plus the £300,000 from her Wimbledon run. Her ranking had moved into the range of world number 30 to number 32, depending on the ranking cycle. Those figures measure professional progress, but they do not explain Wednesday. The fan meet represented something no official WTA page could calculate. It was the country telling Alex, in person, what she had come to mean. When she stepped onto the court in Washington less than 2 weeks later, she would not be carrying only her racket bag, coaching team, and ranking. She would be carrying the memory of thousands of people who showed up simply to welcome her home. That kind of national support had not existed at this scale 12 months earlier. It was built one stop at a time: Manila in January, Dubai, Indian Wells, Berlin, Wimbledon, and finally a mall only a few miles from where she grew up. And none of it required pretending she was unbeatable. She had just lost to Paolini. The score was 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. She fought, adjusted, won the middle set, and then could not close the final one. She had not given a long public explanation of what the defeat felt like, and there was no reason to put invented words in her mouth. What could be said with certainty was that her flight home had already been planned. She was returning regardless of the result. She simply did not know whether she would arrive as a Wimbledon fourth-round player or something even more. She came home as the first Filipina ever to reach that stage, and the crowd met her at the airport anyway. They would meet her at Glorieta anyway, because the Philippines was not waiting for Alex Eala to win Wimbledon before accepting her. The country was waiting for her to come home. So, did Alex Eala's Manila fan meet really sell out in minutes? No, not literally. Nothing was sold. There was no paid ticket, no digital countdown, and no online queue. There was only a registration table opening at 4 o'clock, a program beginning at 6 o'clock, and a young athlete preparing to enter a room filled with people who already believed she belonged to them. Nothing was sold, but everything felt taken. The answer to whether Manila would show up had been written long before Wednesday. It was written during her Miami breakthrough, the packed matches in Dubai, the late-night crowd at Indian Wells, and the center court victory, whose score fans could repeat from memory: 7-6, 11-9 in the tiebreak, 6-2. The name being chanted once belonged mainly to one family in Manila. Now it belongs to a nation. Alex Eala belongs on center court, and she belongs inside Glorieta. On Wednesday evening, those two versions of her story finally stood in the same room. And whatever happens next in Washington, Canada, Cincinnati, or New York, the next chapter begins with the sound of home behind her.